Hey, everybody, welcome back to the Mosaic podcast. You know, every single episode, I start out by saying the same thing, and every single episode, it's true. The beautiful thing about a podcast is that I get to meet people, which means you get to meet people that would never come across our pathway. I know Tommy Breedlove all of about 18 seconds. And we met through a service that provides speakers to podcast guests, to podcast hosts, and they send you a list of people that they offer. And I read his story and I thought, this guy could be interesting. I'd like to talk to him. We ended up setting up the podcast interview. And so this interview for me will be as big of a surprise as it will be for you, because it's not like we've had lots of conversations. It's not like we've spoken in the past a lot. It's not, we know nothing about each other except the fact that we were drawn together, connected by some mysterious force that I call Mosaic, that allows people to come together to create connections that would normally not be there. And when we have the freedom to open our lives to those connections that are one step away from where we are, who knows what will happen? Maybe nothing, maybe everything. So let me give you, I'm not, as those of you who have listened to my podcast know, I'm not a big bio person, because you can go to his website and read his bio, which I'm going to encourage you to do. But let me give you a little background so that we have some context to start the conversation out. Tommy Breedlove. From overcoming incarceration as a young man to working at the largest financial consulting firms in the world, he gained business notoriety and financial success. He became a senior partner, international practice leader, and member of the board of directors. He looked successful on the outside, but was crumbling on the inside and almost lost everything. Tommy made the choice to transform his life and follow his true calling, and believes his purpose now is to empower humans to build a legendary life. We're going to talk about what a legendary life is. But first, Tommy, welcome to the Mosaic podcast.
I'm excited to be here, brother. I haven't heard that bio in quite some time, so I'm excited.
Okay. Well, it's right on your site. I just cut and chopped it a little bit.
I love it.
And part of what we do, and we already talked about this in the 18 seconds we were in green room, is we're hoping this interview will be a different interview than most interviews, where we talk about the real person that was there. Mm-hmm. And I really want to just dive in a minute. But before I go there, I just want to ask some basic things to get people to know who you are. What your parents do?
My dad was a mechanic at Delta, and my mom worked part-time as a deed clerk, which doesn't exist anymore. So she went from courthouse to courthouse recording manually with her pen and paper deeds that were either purchased or sold.
And between your dad and your mom, who was the one you wanted to not impress most, but who was the one you felt you wanted to have their love the most? What that you would do things to get their love most? Was there one or the other that you chose?
It had to be my mother, but it was imposed. It wasn't like I wanted to love her. It was like she imposed it. She imposed her will on me and my sister. So it's one of those things that I probably sought her approval, and neither Tracy nor I, which is my sister Tracy, ever received it.
Wow. What does it mean that she imposed that?
She was a very emotionally, mentally, and violent, abusive human being. Still is.
Wow.
Even with stage 4 breast cancer, the way she treats my father is unbelievable.
Wow.
Yeah.
So
extreme. We grew up with extreme abuse in the home. Extreme.
Wow. And first of all, I'm sorry.
It's made me who I am today.
but no human being should grow up that way, in terms of looking
Agreed.
at the people that you look to the people that protect you, and what they do is they abuse you. And every time I hear stories like that, I think, God, my parents passed away when I was a kid. My dad when I was 13, my mom when I was 15. And I think, boy, when I feel sorry for myself, I think, oh God, I'm sorry for myself. But I grew up with a mom and dad that loved each other, and a family that loved each other, and I mean, I say Ozzie and Harriet. People don't even know who those people are anymore because it dates me so long ago, right? But
Right.
in that old time family where people loved each other, and where it was different. So, what effect would you say that's had on you growing up like that? What does that? What will you never forget, and what will you always remember?
I've pretty much, when I say never forget, I have spent years, especially the last 8 years, learning to forgive both them and me. Um, What's interesting when you said what I won't forget is I think one of my survival mechanisms from 18 to 36 was the ability to forget. It's like my childhood just didn't happen. It didn't exist.
Yeah.
And so that was one of the things that was I've been undoing for the last 8 years. But the worst thing that happens is when you grow up in that situation. And my sister has never been a really productive human being in society, and she's 10 years older than me. She's 55. I'm 45. And she has struggled in life because of it. And I did for a long time. But what the worst thing that happens is the people that are so bullied, especially inside the home, is we become what we hate. We become the bullies.
Yeah.
And so that's what led me ultimately to, when my mom and dad weren't hitting each other or macing each other, there was nothing off limits. I mean, from metal belts to you name it, mace.
Wow.
And it was a frequent event. And when they weren't doing that to each other, they were doing it to us. And the worst thing that happens is the people who are bullied become the bully. So that's what I won't forget.
Wow.
And I work every single day. It's interesting now in my life when I see bullying of any type, whether it's online, whether it's people being aggressive in traffic, or whether it's just straight up people being mean to each other. It's hard for me not to want to match that and exceed it.
Yeah.
And so that's something in my life that I've worked with my coaches, my mentors, my psychologists on a very regular basis.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, how could it not be? Because your very survival seemed like as a kid to depend on that, right?
Absolutely.
At least stepping up to the same level so that you wouldn't be annihilated.
Right.
Let me just, I remember, I don't know you at all. And so like, we just dived in and thank you for being so honest and open and sharing
Absolutely.
that part. And so when did you realize that the life you were living was not the one that most people were living, or the other that you had to live, or that wasn't normal? Because we grow up as kids and we look at our family. Like for me, my mom and dad died, and I thought, well, it's just normal for dad to die at 13. That's just what
right.
happened. Until I realized, God, hold it, all my friends have their parents still. Like, what's going on?
Right.
And so when did you realize that was not quote unquote normal, or did you have you realized that yet?
Absolutely. 36 years old. I was the first person to graduate from college in my family. Wow. And really worked hard to be, quote, successful. And at 36 years old, I had the money, the power, the prestige, the title, the American dream that my parents never had, nor anyone in the Breedlove family, our immediate family, had. And I found myself one day after 2 or 3 days of just pure chaos, just staring up at the sky and asking, why do I feel this way about myself? Why am I afraid? Why am I just truly scared to be who I am? And it was, some people call it rock bottom. I'll call it a spiritual transformation. So it sounds good.
Yeah.
But at 36 years old, I don't know if it was that little boy inside of me. I don't know if it was some sort of God or spiritual being, but there was something inside of me said enough is enough. And I just, I picked myself up, dusted myself off, went home, told my wife everything about the lifestyle I had been living for years, and decided to change. And I think it was that moment at 36 that I realized the man I looked in the mirror and saw was not the man I wanted to be. And I think that was my absolute, I'm not going to do this anymore moment.
So first of all, there are so many people listening to this right now, I'm sure, that look in the mirror on a regular basis and see a person they didn't think they would ever be.
Mm.
And so I want what you're saying to really reside in our listeners for a moment, because a lot of times people would have made that decision at the place of abuse, not at the place of success, right? Or what the world would deem as success. So I really want to dive in, because I know from reading your story a little bit that success wasn't really success for you, even though it looked outwardly to be successful. There was sort of an inner, what was that inner thing that you brought with you from a child, that you locked in a closet at 18 because you didn't want to look at it, you wanted to just forget it, that didn't ever stay in the closet? In my book, Mosaic, I call it the beast. We put that beast in the closet because we don't want to see him. We're embarrassed by what he will do if he comes out, but he's our passion. He's our love. He's what makes us become real and come alive. And we can lock him in there and think that he's never going to be there again, but he's too powerful and too strong to stay in the closet for all that time. And so we say we want to forget him, but there's no way we can forget him, because he's a part of our mosaic of our life. He's one of the characters that exists within our being. So what was it at 18 that you tried to lock away, and at 36 that you would seem the world would say you've attained what it wants to give you, that still wasn't there?
At 18, I would say extreme fear. Just scared to death.
What were you scared of?
There was really no safe place for me, because I was the youngest boy in an all-boy neighborhood. Very skinny, very weak. I'm a big dude now. I'm 6'2", 220. So a big, strong guy. But then I was very tall, very thin, very weak. So was picked on a lot. So it was just, and then, I was.
So excuse me 1 minute. So were you not only in an abusive home, but also in a tough neighborhood?
Somewhat, yes. And being in an all-boy neighborhood, good, solid, blue-collar, middle-class place, I was always the blunt of a lot of bullying. How about that? And so you're just scared, and then you become angry and aggressive because of that fear.
I wasn't scared. You mean I was scared. You're saying this when you say
Tommy was scared.
Tommy was scared. Yeah.
Yeah. Okay. Tommy was scared.
And then that's
itself in anger.
So Tommy was scared of getting beaten up, because it seemed like you've been beaten up, and it seemed like you survived being beaten up. So what I'm trying to get at, and please, like this, I so appreciate your patience with me, because this place of what people are scared of is really what I think we all deal with. You've already been beaten up. You couldn't be scared of being beaten up, because you've been beaten up so much. You've been hit by belts. You've been punched around. You've been shot with mace. What were the kids around you going to do that you hadn't already done? What is it that you were actually scared of beneath the stuff that you're seeing?
So you're right. The physical stuff, eventually you almost become numb to it, but you never become numb to the emotional, mental, and spiritual bloodbath that's beaten into you, to where you feel not good enough, insecure, you're shamed. It's not that you feel like you are bad, like you are flawed. And that's what followed me all the way up to 36, is those deep insecurities, not good enoughs. That's the stuff that followed me throughout my life until I said enough is enough.
So let me push you a little bit. When you say they followed you to 36, that makes the assumption in my head, and maybe in listeners' head, that at 36 they're no longer there. But no,
that's where they manifested themselves in the worst possible moment. And then I said, this journey of life, the insecurities, the fears, the not good enoughs, those never go away. That's part of life. Yeah. But there's a lot of things that we can do to minimize that voice, that inner critic, for lack of a better word. You called it the monster. What did you call it?
The beast. The beast.
The beast. Yeah, you call it the enemy. You call it whatever you want. Clouds, darkness. But it never goes away. And you and I both know that our society promotes that fear, insecurity, envy, and jealousy. But the 36 is where something inside of me, and I don't know what it was. We can say it was God or that little boy, or a combination of all of it, that said no more. Because my next stop was death. I mean, I was living that type of life, just pushing everything to the limits, from work to life to imbalance to you name it. And that's
did
what.
you have abuse? You were married at that point, right? I heard.
Yep.
I think right. Were you abusive to your wife?
She would say no. I would say I certainly wasn't the same man behind closed doors that I was out in public. I had this facade of perfection out in public with the suits and the cufflinks and the nice car. She would tell you no. I think I'm a little harder on myself than she was. I think I outsourced my love through work and everything else. I was a very fun guy. She would tell you no. I would say yes, because I just wasn't the same guy. I outsourced my emotions and love to money, power, you name it. And I would say that I wasn't the man for her that I wanted to be. And she would say, I always saw the best in him, but she's a glass half full person.
Right. My wife,
she grew up with love, right?
Yeah. Totally. My wife's the
We're
same
still
way.
together, by the way.
Love it. No, and that speaks so much. It speaks volumes to not only who you are, but who she is and who you are together. Because my wife is the same way. But I remember doing something and saying to her, "Why do you love me?" And she said, "I've never had anybody ask me why I love you them before. I love you because I love you. There is no why."
I know, isn't that interesting?
And it just melted me to the core, because I thought that's what love is. It doesn't need a why. It doesn't need you to be a certain way. When you're with a person that is your person, that person is just your person. And they're, like we say, through thick or thin, through until death do us part, for better or worse. But we don't believe it until we actually see it. And so at 36, walk us through that moment where enough is enough became real. What happened at 35 and 364 days that changed at 36 that it was just enough already?
Yeah. So there was nothing filling that void inside of me. And so I was climbing down into the deepest, darkest pits of I was traveling all over the planet, and I would just try to find something to fill that void.
Tell me what that is. What were you, how did you do that?
I'm not going to give too much of a roadmap to people to climb down in holes, because they will. I have found, and you can find, every city has the deepest, darkest places and the worst imaginable things from, and I'll put it like this, to rooms in the bottom of places that are run by gangsters where you can literally just go fight. Literally to the death. Wow. And I'll just leave it at that. And even those type things weren't filling that void, because I was looking for either a rush in a whitewater rafting, or a business deal, or money, or power, or even in the darkest pits, and you name it. But I have found that when you share that, people go seeking them. And why do that? And I don't want to give people a roadmap because pain follows pain, and that, brother.
Yeah. Totally.
I find that when people want to know like the deep, darkest secrets of incarceration, or they really want to hear the pain. I don't know why. So let me just say it was there was nothing filling that void. From chemicals to alcohol to you name it, and I don't remember much about those 2 days, except it was I just never stopped. It started as afternoon beers, and then it just progressed for a day and a half of just complete chaos. And I found myself, woke up, didn't know where I was. I was literally in a ditch. I was probably doing some huge, massive deal a week before that in some room with a CEO. And here I am in a ditch, looking up at the blue sky. And I knew the next stop was death, and I didn't want to die. And I was that little boy again, and I was scared, and I just said, enough is enough.
Wow.
No more.
And so tell me about the moment on the other side of enough is enough, that first moment that you experienced yourself in a different way. What did
I
you
love it.
do?
I remember that one specifically.
I bet.
Now I've got this one.
Good, because these transition moments from the place that is completely empty to suddenly the place where that emptiness isn't what drives you or does drive you, but it drives you in a different way. That's the place that I want to get to, because everybody, if we're breathing, we have those moments. If we're
Mm-hmm.
alive, they may not be as extreme as the moments you went through in your life, but every one of us in our life has those moments where there's an emptiness that we're trying to fill and nothing is filling it, and we just keep driving and driving in the direction that we've been told that will fill it, till we get to the place where we say enough's enough. Nothing out here is going to do it. There's something else that's here. What did that moment on the other side look like that you can remember so clearly?
So I've got to give props to a place in Tennessee called On-Site Workshops. I think it's called On-Site. It's so pre 36, my wife and I clearly were going through a lot of marriage counselors.
Yeah.
And they would always say the same thing. It's kind of funny, and I'll get to the moment because this is important. Is they would always, about the third session, they would say, "Tommy, why don't you come next time? And Heather, why don't you stay at home?" Which is Heather's my wife. And at first, I always thought they were going to tell me that she was the problem. Then I realized they saw me. There was something deep and dark down inside of me that I couldn't feel. I literally couldn't feel. I mean, I had no emotions except anger and conquer. So one of the counselors did me the biggest favor, and he goes, "There's a place in Tennessee that can do more for you in 7 days than I can do in 10 years. And I didn't know what he meant at the time. I thought he was just, psychology hocus pocus. And he was right. And when I had that moment, I called him and I was like, "Can you get me into this place?" And it has a long waiting list. And he got me right away. And I went to this place and I almost turned around. I almost didn't show up, but I said enough is enough. So I went to this place in Tennessee, and they spend 4 days cutting you wide open, emotionally, mentally, you name it. They just bring out all the darkness. And then they spend 3 days putting you back together. And I just remember this one moment. They had me write a letter to my young self, and I just broke down. Mm-hmm. Uncontrollable crying. I don't think I've cried since I was a child. Yeah. And it was just this breakdown of uncontrollable tears. And then I walked outside and I couldn't get my stuff together. I mean, I just couldn't get it. I mean, I was like, just snot. And you know that good cry where everything's flowing. But then the very next day, I was standing out in this field, and this is just this gorgeous part of Tennessee. And I'm standing in this field with a horse and a stream, and I just had this moment of complete peace. And it was like I saw the world for the first time. And it was the moment, I'll call it God. It was just like something, I was like one with the planet, one with the universe, one with God. And it was just this moment of complete peace that I had never experienced in my entire life. And I've been working endlessly to maintain that sense of peace the rest of my life. And so I just remember it. I mean, it's like, it's hard to describe. It was such a moment of just complete bliss and peace. And maybe I'm going to be okay. Maybe I'm going to be all right. Maybe this life is worth living, because before that, I didn't think life was worth living. And I think I was unintentionally trying to kill myself. Like, I didn't have the courage just to do it. I think I was doing all the things to hopefully someone would do it for me.
Looking for the socially acceptable way to get out.
Right.
Which was not putting a gun to your head and shooting yourself or doing that.
Right.
And I think that anybody who has not had that experience of that moment where suddenly everything is connected and the world becomes one. I talk about it in my book, The Mosaic, where Mo talks to all these normal, ordinary people trying to find out where his parents are, because he's been told they're in heaven, and he's asking them where heaven is, but he's not talking to priests and rabbis and Sufis and Sikhs and shamans. He's talking to the trash man and the gardener and the blind woman and the homeless guy. And he listens to their stories. And in listening to their stories, he sees the person he saw initially is not at all the person that's there now. They're a totally different person, because now he knows a little bit about them. And when he realizes that what he sees is not at all what is, He meets a monk who unzips the sky and walks him through to a parallel reality, where he meets the wise one, who's the keeper of the Mosaic. And the keeper of the Mosaic, the wise one, taps him on the forehead, and he suddenly has that same experience you had of everything in the world, past, present, future, being the same. There is no difference between it. And I think so many of us have had that moment. So many of us have had that place where suddenly everything we saw before is not what we see anymore. And that really is the purpose of this show. To say that the place that you are in, wherever you are now, no matter what you think you see, will tomorrow be gone. And it doesn't mean because you'll be gone and we'll die and we'll go someplace else. It's because it's only a belief or a thought or something that in another moment can change everything, and the world that we see will be entirely different. I say in a mosaic, we're one piece away from an entirely new world. And so that's the beauty to me. And a lot of the work that I do with people, which it sounds like, and we're going to transition for you into the work you do, because who cares about what I do, okay? But a lot of the work that I do with people is I look at the mosaic of the choices that people have made in their life that are creating the situations that they're connected to. And I disconnect some of those places that are bringing them into pain. And I open up new possibilities and new connections to connections that will bring them to a happier, joyful life. But what I want to go back to for one moment before we go to your work, for me, and I really want to know for you, I'm going to talk about what it is for me, but not because I care about what it is for me. I want to know how you relate to this. It feels to me like I resist or have resisted major parts of my life. There are parts of me that I push away, push aside, say, no, this isn't me. And the world is in front of me, but I resist those and push them away. It feels like, for me, somewhere along your process, at some place, instead of hiding that pain, you had that place in Tennessee that just cut you open and said, let's look at this. And when we look at it, it suddenly stops being as fearful as we think it will be, as terrible as it is. When I opened up the door to my room where the beast lived, I was petrified to open up that door. But when I opened it up, nobody was there. Because who I was had changed. And that beast that I thought was there and that was going to have all this stuff was gone. And I'm just wondering for you, if when they opened you up and what you saw in looking at that pain and not pushing it away anymore and not resisting it and just accepting it and loving it and sort of holding it, if that was your process as well, or how that process worked in Tennessee.
I think it began the process there. And it's been an 8-year journey since.
Yeah.
To me, probably the biggest moment where that happened is when you'll hear in a minute. I went on this 11-day vision quest, or 9-day vision quest, 11-day vision quest. I think it was 11 days.
Whatever amount it was.
Yeah, but 4 of those days, no food, no humans, no tent, in the mountains, and it's just your demons, your fear, the monster. And I think at that moment, and I went there, I didn't go there seeking a vision. I went there to seek to put these things to rest.
Yeah.
These things that have happened to me, these things that I've done, these things that I've experienced. And it was time for me to go out. And, when you don't have food, you don't have shelter. It's just you and nature in the mountains, the spiders and bears and all. You have that moment. And I think at that moment, you were talking about this big dark monster. I had this, and it was taught to me by the shaman who was running the elder, for lack of a better word, who was running this particular vision quest. It's an indigenous-based philosophy. And I think at that moment, through his teachings in that vision quest, I looked at all of that stuff with intense gratitude, because the anger, the fear kept me alive. It literally kept me alive.
Yeah, totally.
And it's what I needed to do to survive at that moment. But it didn't serve me any longer.
Yeah.
And so I think I looked on it with incredible gratitude and almost humbleness, and thanked it, and thanked that particular part of Monster or me or whatever it is, because it allowed me to, all of that pain has allowed me to serve countless others since. And so I looked on that. I think at that moment in that vision quest, I looked at those fears and angers and insecurities and just had a really deep moment of gratitude for them. And since then, I've used them as a base to stand on as opposed to an anchor to hold me down. I think that was the moment it happened for me.
Fabulous. Fabulous. There is so much richness in your story. And I want to honor you and thank you for being able to talk to an imperfect stranger like myself that you never met, right? That's right. In a public forum, as openly and honestly as you're doing. I know for me, I'm touched by it. I'm sure by our listeners, they'll be touched by it. So let's not live in the valley of where the pain was, okay?
Right.
Because the valley is good to know that pain, but the reason it's good is because we ascend also.
Totally.
And we bring that painful process into the pleasurable place of where we are. Not that pain won't exist where we are now either, but walk us up the hill now, that what happened when you had that Tennessee moment and follow. How did it start to reshape your life? What started to fall away? What started to say? What pieces of your mosaic, in my terminology, did you disconnect to so that you could connect the new pieces?
I loved the feelings so much. So Tennessee also did something amazing for me. It taught me that I wasn't alone. There was a rock star there. There was a CEO there, and they're like a big CEOs. And there's also a lot of folks just like me and you, just normal folks, just trying to deal.
What do you mean I'm a normal folk? No,
just trying to deal. We didn't have fancy titles,
right?
But what you realize is we're all on this journey, and I wasn't alone. So that was huge. And I wanted that feeling the rest of my life, that feeling of peace, elation, and calm. Because my life up to that point was anything but calm. It was chaos.
Yeah. And
so for me, what that looked like is if they would have told me to do anything, stand on my head with a candle on my foot, I didn't care what they told me, I was going to do it. And I literally made me my full-time job, my emotional, mental, spiritual, from books to meditation to gratitude, you name it. Vision quest, silent, whatever. And so I made self-improvement, self-development, and building my emotional and mental fortress my full-time job.
Yeah.
And I continue to do that today. I'm literally, because I just finished my morning practice, I'm in my workout gears and my hat because I just got in from a big walk with my dog, who's not supposed to be here. It's supposed to be with my wife because we're recording today. But anyway, so what happened, I can't explain it, but I was still in the financial world at public accounting and financial consulting firm. And I'll tell you what happened there. I went from a junior partner to a senior partner to international practice leader to elected to the board of directors. I went from being one of the most disliked people at the firm to one of the most beloved. From a true servant leader to the people. And we started winning all these awards. Money was money. I doubled my income probably within 3 years. My marriage, she kept saying, my wife loved me when I couldn't love me, right? Yeah. She unconditionally loved me when I had no ability to love myself. And so I started cultivating that self-love, self-respect, self-confidence in myself so that I could truly love her and love my friends. And so our relationship over the past 8 years has been the best it's ever been. And what's weird is I made it imperative for me to cut out the negative influences of my life. And the people who, pain attracts pain. And I was in a lot of pain. So I had a lot of people around me in pain. And so from friendships to success, to happiness, to fulfillment. And it's still a journey, right? We all have days. I call it the Tommy go round when the Tommy go round kicks in. But it's just this beautiful thing. And that leads me into, and this was a very, very scary, tough decision, but all of these wonderful humans in my network saw this massive, like 180-degree transformation in myself. And they started reaching out to me and saying, I don't know what you're doing, but I want some of that.
Yeah.
And I told them how much there's no magic pill or someone coming on a white horse. It's a lot of work. And about the 15th or 20th person that asked me for help, I was like, there's something to this, and this is important. And eventually I decided to walk away from the financial world and go straight into public speaking and mindset, relationship, and business coaching for people. And it's the most fulfilling, rewarding work I've ever done in my life. And I want to give people that same sense of unconditional love, mastering their mindset. So that's what I do today is help them with self-confidence and love. And they always want to come to me for business success or be a better leader or all this, but it always ends up in, mastering our mindset and developing unconditional love. So 100% of the time, 100% of the time. So that's what I do today.
And I love that. And so, let's just get it out now because we're coming, we still have time, but let's just get it out. When someone who has heard this, which I'm sure they will, want to be one of those people that says, I want to get off the Tommy go round and I want to start living my life. And I want someone who's walked through that place that can help me do that. How would they find you? How would they get in touch with you? And we'll put all this in the show notes too, and we'll say it at the end again.
I don't mind people. I don't really check my email that often. I have two other people that help me with that, but I'd email to me directly and we will respond. And it's Tommy@TommyBreedlove.com. We will 100% respond. And here's the thing. I might not be your flavor. You might want strawberry and I'm chocolate, and that's okay. But first of all, I would tell them they're not alone. So that's the key, is you are not alone in this. And if I'm not your flavor, I have a massive amount of resources and wonderful humans and people in my network that I can refer them to if it doesn't work for us. But I would say email me directly at Tommy@TommyBreedlove.com. And I still, I'm 8 years into this journey. I still have a coach, still in men's masterminds. I still go see a psychologist. So I surround myself and constantly sharpen these tools as well. So I would say reach out to me directly. And if I'm not your flavor, I will find your flavor, or someone on my team will find your flavor.
Fabulous. And so I'm assuming Tommy@TommyBreedlove.com would also be a website, which would be TommyBreedlove.com.
That's it.
Right.
That's
okay.
it.
So I just want to share that. I know that exists already because I've been on it, but I want to share that with people just in the case. What's one thing that surprised you along the way?
One thing that has surprised me is that 100% of humans seem to struggle in relationships with their significant other. That there's been no exception to that. I don't know why we are different people in public than we are behind closed doors. I wouldn't say everyone, but it just seems to manifest.
100% is everybody, baby.
Yeah, well, that has come to me for help. It always starts with being a better leader, a better business person, making more money, blah, blah, blah. That's always a result of the work we do. But however, it seems like the more ambitious and driven we are, the people that we care about the most is who we sacrifice first. Yeah. With a lack of attention or lack of date night or kids or whatever. It seems without exception, the more ambitious and driven we are, we say that our family, our kids, our friends are the most important, but we seem to put them last. Actually, we don't put them last. We put them second to last. We put ourselves last.
You're reading my mind, because I was going to say to you, is that really true? Like, go underneath that, because our relationships, our intimate relationships, there's one intimate relationship that we have that most of us have no idea how to have. And
100%.
Ourselves.
Yeah, so true.
The Mosaic has taught me something through the idea of how we connect and what are the steps. We think connection is this, you and me sitting and talking together, but this is actually the fourth level of connection. The first level of connection is we have to connect ourselves, because if I spend my time putting myself down and beating myself up, for those of you on video, you can see what I'm doing. For those of you who aren't, I'm literally with my right hand throwing a punch to my face and with my left hand protecting myself. And that punch is my protection from my own self-attack is what, 2 millimeters from my face? And I don't know when I'm going to hit myself or where I'm going to hit myself, because I constantly tear myself down and sabotage myself and beat myself up and tell myself I'm not good enough. Less and less so as I've gotten more into it, but let's just assume now it's 24/7 on alert, right? So I have a silo that protects me around myself 24/7 from the top of my head to the bottom of my feet. And then I wonder why there's no intimacy, because really my connection with you is my silo meets your silo, because you have the same one.
100%.
And so we wonder why we don't have intimacy in our life. And with the people out here, it doesn't really matter, because we're never that intimate. I paint the wall of my silo so it looks like I'm doing really well.
Of course.
Right. But inside, I'm just a kid in a fetal position, crying and hoping you'll never look over my wall.
So true.
And so if you notice, I have this little bracelet that I have on my website, mosaiconline.com, of Be Kind to Yourself. It's a 21 consecutive day challenge that I invite people to do. And it isn't about getting there in 21 days. It's about understanding the practice of being kind to ourselves, because when I'm kind to myself, I'm not hitting myself anymore. My wall can come down. And that means now I can see my world's grown exponentially. I can start to see a lot more of my world than I ever did, because I couldn't see any of it before. And I might look across the way now that I see you, and I might see you in the distance, and I might go, that guy's a scary mofo. I need to protect myself from him. But I now know kindness is what's dissolved my wall. Kindness will probably be what the wall will be. So I can say to you, Tommy, if I promise you I will never hurt you, and I promise you that we can take these walls down between us one brick at a time, and don't take down more than you feel comfortable. Let's just take them one brick at a time down and see how we feel. And if we feel comfortable, we take another one down. Well, then that same mechanism that I use to take down my wall, I can take down the walls of the worlds around me. But there's a second practice and a third practice. The second practice is that once I know that I exist like this, then I have to know that I have to have a connection to source. I have to know there's something bigger than me that exists. And I bet somewhere along your line, you said it, that moment was a God experience.
It was.
Right? There's some connection to source that makes us feel like we're a part of something greater. We're not alone. We're not, like when we connect to ourselves, we're just alone. It's just us. But when we connect to source, we realize there's something more going on. And once we do that, then the third connection becomes essential. We have to start to wonder, what in the heck are we doing here? And we have a connection to our purpose. And when you get people that are vulnerable and open, that don't have walls around them, that realize there's something greater in the world that exists than just their own selves, and they become purposeful to realize what their place is, and you bring those people together, those are the people that change the world forever.
100%.
Okay.
You just described my entire network.
Okay.
Now, it's amazing what we'll attract into our lives by doing everything you just said. To lighten that up a little bit, one of my mentors, Kerry Gaho, just this fascinating, wonderful man, used to say, "Don't make fun of me. That's my job."
Yeah, that's right.
And for years, I had written on you can write on all the walls I have around me, but for years, I had right next to me, "Lighten up and don't be an asshole." And that was me talking to me.
Right. So what's one thing that you realized that you always thought you was true, but you realized as you got further and further into it? And I'm not talking about from the time until you were 36. I'm talking about from 36 on. what's one thing that you always thought was true that you found out really wasn't true? And the way you were seeing it was completely off base, or not completely off base, even slightly off base.
I think probably several things. The one, maybe, I don't know if anything is 100% true or accurate. Like, I've realized that I don't know anything.
Wow.
And the more I read and learn and experience human and travel, and the definition of truth, maybe the definition of truth is this: when we become certain of anything, we're losing. That's how wars and everything else happens. Yeah. And so I think I've come to realize that I don't know anything, and I'm really not certain about anything, but I sure do love the feeling of love.
Yeah. 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 And like, can you imagine if people would adapt that point of view in their life, what it would do to the conversations we have politically, what it would do to the conversations we have around the table with our family, what it would do if in the conversations we have around our businesses. And if we were a little less certain, we just have a situation where I see in myself, my 15-year-old stepdaughter, where she just is the smartest thing in the whole world, and she thinks she knows everything, right? And I look in her eyes and I say, "You little mofo, that's exactly who I was. How do I get to see you again?" Right? And that moment where you go from thinking you know everything to realizing you know nothing is such an enlightening moment. How would you? Maybe this is what you're doing. But if you had the ability to share that one thing with people, what would be the most important quality they could do today that would allow them to drop that sense, that insecurity of having to know everything or be so certain? And we hate the emptiness of not knowing. Right? We're scared to death of it. What would you say to
It's actually freeing on some level.
Yeah, it's exhilarating. It's completely exhilarating, but most people don't have the courage to do that. What would you say?
Courage.
What would you say to people to give them the courage to help them, like, disconnect the pieces of their mosaic, in my language, okay? But disconnect from the pieces that are causing them all the life that they're living, and rebuild the life that they want to have. That's really essentially what you do with people. What would be the first essential step that they would get to?
I think it's a two-part. It's one step, but two parts. The first step is, I'm a firm believer in you have to participate in your own rescue. And it comes down to a choice. And you said it best. You talked about choice at length. The only power we have at all is our mindset and our choices. To the last minute. And so you have to make the courageous choice. You just used the word courage to participate in your own rescue. And I'm going to ask this question immediately. And this was taught to me by someone else: is what is the one thing in your life that if you gave it up, could be fear, could be alcohol, could be insecurities. I mean, you'll know the answer immediately. What's the one thing in your life that if you gave it up, your life would improve 100 times what it is now? And everyone on the planet knows what that thing is immediately. And then go and get help on that one thing. If it's self-confidence, if it's insecurities, if it's fears, you've got to participate in your own rescue. You know the one thing that you need to either add or give up, and make the choice to go do something about it. And start small and think big. You don't have to, Rome wasn't built in a day. Start small and think big. That's what I would say. Everything is a choice. Whether you think it is or not, it is a choice.
Yeah. We are so in sync with that, because to me, when I look at the choices people make of what they connect to, they tell me the whole story of their life, the thoughts that they think, the people that surround themselves. When I look at the mosaic of who a person is and the choices they've made to become that part of a mosaic, and I ask them to do the same thing you're asking to, of what pieces could you let go from this to allow space for something new to come in, it completely alters a person's life.
100%. Yep.
Right. So I love This is why I love this podcast. I have no idea who you are. You walked into this room as a stranger to me, and you're going away as a brother.
I love it.
And I thank you for you being vulnerable enough and honest enough to walk that journey, and to really share yourself. Because in sharing yourself, if Tommy is not a person that you knew before, but after listening to this, you decide, I want to work with this guy, I can't encourage you enough to do so. And I want you to go to TommyBreedlove.com. I can't believe that was his name, but you know,
I'm living up to it now, brother.
He's living up to it right now, because they certainly didn't breed love in the early parts of your life, right?
No, sure didn't.
So you're giving
Sure
honor
didn't.
to the name that you were given. So if Tommy Breedlove is someone you want to work with, go to TommyBreedlove.com, email Tommy at TommyBreedlove.com. Take action. Take action and take the choice to be a part of your own rescue. Tommy, do you have a book or something that people can read? Did I hear there might be something like that?
I am just finished it. It's been a 3-year battle of me versus me. And finally, the good me is winning. And I'm so very proud of it, which is hard for a perfectionist and the critic. So very proud of it. It's called Legendary. And the reason I came up with that title, it's not something we, in a world of self-promotion, the title of Legendary is given to us by society, our peers, our friends, our loved ones. And we can be good legends or bad legends. We can be the MLKs and the Gandhis of the world, or we can be the Hitlers of the world. And I have created a playbook that the 36-year-old me really needed to build and live a legendary life and to be remembered for something greater than ourselves. And it goes into all of this good stories in it, but also goes into the simple tools and tactics, from conquering our time to mastering our mindsets, developing unconditional love, to finding our purpose. It's the toolbook for building and living a legendary life. And I'm so proud of it and so happy. It'll be in the book will be in my hands in December, and it'll be in airports and bookstores in February. So you can pre-order it today, but I am so happy with it. I'm so proud of it. And I really do want and desire that it helps people. If it helps one person, I've won. So I'm really super excited about it. Thank you.
Congratulations. I know what a big job it is. I was in publishing for a lot of years, and I thought my book was going to take me 2 months to write, and it took me 3 years.
Right at 3 years. And I've rewritten it 3 times.
Yeah. For me, mine's a fable. And so when I wrote it, and I was writing what I believed the characters wanted to say. And they would always disrupt it. They would always distort it. I would always lose the files. It would never sound quite right. Until finally I said, what in the hell is going on? And I heard the characters in the book, because everything in the world speaks to us if we listen to it. And the characters that I had made up in my book, based on some real life events, but some were completely made up, took on a real persona. They were not made up characters. They were real. And they started to say to me, you're writing what you want us to say. We don't want that. We want you to listen to what we're saying and write what we want you to say. What we want to say. And the moment I did that, the book came out clearly, quickly. And I look at it now, and some of the magic that it happens. And I'll be interested to know what your experience is as you sit with your book a little bit longer. Is that the words of the book are beautiful. The story that it tells is charming, and it will literally inspire people to see the greatness in all human beings. But the space between the words, the vibration that exists in the book itself, has the power to transform. And that would have never been in there had I written the book that I thought I was going to write, if I didn't allow it to be written through me. So really, really
the muse.
Yeah, it's really the muse. And that's
the muse.
Really, in closing, I ask the same question every podcast, and it has a follow-up question. When you look out the window and you look at the world that exists out there, Is this the world you always dreamed of handing over to your kids and your children's children?
Yes,
Wow. You know, it's
it is.
interesting.
I
Somehow
choose to see the goodness.
yeah,
It's
fabulous.
all around us. It's all around us.
So I'm really interested because lately I've been getting a lot of yeses, and before I was getting 97% no's. Tell me what world you see. And for people that look out of the window, and 97% of them answer, no, it's not, because they see all the fighting, all the bickering, all the gridlock, all the chaos, all the turmoil, tell me the world, tell them the world that you see that says, yes, this is the world I want to give to my kids.
I get the honor of being around, from friends to family to network to my clients, people who really want to make a difference in this world. And if you look at the macro, you can shut down. We can see all the problems in the world. But if you look at the micro, from one human being to one human being to one human being, the impact of goodness and possibility, goodness and just love and empathy and kindness, it happens all around us all the time. Our media and social media is there to divide us and to make us scared, and our social medias make us jealous and envy because we're not good enough, right? And if we just cut off that noise and look up and see the beautiful blue sky and the tree and be in this present moment right here, right now, you'll see all the love and goodness around you. And every human being, 99.99% of human beings are wonderful human beings.
Yeah.
We just have been taught to believe otherwise.
Yeah, no, totally. And first of all, Tommy, thank you for giving your time.
Of course.
Thank you for being on the show. Thank you for accepting the invitation from an imperfect stranger like myself
Takes one to know one.
to come on and be with us. And I really hope this is the beginning of conversation between us and not the end.
I love that.
What I'd like to do is just summarize sort of some of my thoughts and feelings and ask people to just sit with some things and think about. I love when a show works this way. I love when the person that we talk about in the beginning of the show is not somebody you would maybe want to be around. It's someone who grew up in an environment of abuse and where nothing was held back. And for that same person, through an hour-long show and through a ton of work in his life that he did, to be able to say, yes, this is the world that I want to give over to the world that follows me, because everybody, 99.9% of people have goodness in them. To be able to make that transformation from what used to be to what is, I want to just share with you, through Tommy's story and through the story of your story and my story, the potholes on the road, like I talk about in the Mosaic with the road worker, are not the road. They're just potholes. And as long as we are stuck in those potholes, we think the potholes are the road. But 2 inches away is a whole nother glorious road that exists. And so we don't need to live in the potholes. We can get out of them. And what I want you to know from my heart, from Tommy's heart, because I can feel it, is the world you're living in now, whatever that is, be it the greatest world in the world or the worst world in the world, is only the world you're living in right now. One moment away, one connection away, one person away, one piece of a mosaic away is an entirely new world. And if you've heard nothing on this podcast except that today, I want you to have hope. Because I want you to know that just like Tommy did it, just like I am doing it, you're doing it too. I want to thank everybody. I want to thank you again, Tommy, for being here. I want to thank everybody who's listened to the show for listening to the show. If you like the show, I would love you to like it on iTunes. I would like you to subscribe to our YouTube channel, which is where the video will be posted. I would like you to contact Tommy, TommyBreedlove.com, Tommy at TommyBreedlove.com, and we'll put that all in the show notes. I would love for you to buy a copy of my book, The Mosaic. I would love for you to go to themosaiconline.com and see the work that I'm doing. And I would love for us to realize that no matter how separate we seem, we aren't separate at all. We are all united. We're all part of the same reality. We're all connected. And as Tommy said it so beautifully, a big moment for him in his life was when he realized he was not alone. Listen to this podcast, listen to it again, listen to it again. And you don't have to listen to it. Have Tommy talk to you yourself by just giving him a call. Thank you again, everybody, for being here. Until the next show, stay connected. We're stronger together than we are apart. Ciao.